Well, hello to all my fellow students of Chinese. This is Jesse, and I'm uploading this video to explain how to type in Chinese with WuBi. Here we have the characters WuBi. Literally, it means 5 strokes. And WuBi is a really neat system for typing all of the possible characters in the Chinese lexicon with 4 key presses or less. So in this first video, I'm going to talk about how to use WuBi. I'm just going to go through a how-to user guide, step by step, paint by numbers. And then in a second video, I'm going to introduce you to some useful resources that'll help you get started with WuBi that much faster. Okay, so how do we use WuBi? Basically, I'm going to work off this guide found at yale.edu. It was written in 1996. I can bring it up here, and it's really well written. It's great in most respects, but if you just happen upon it in your Chrome browser, you won't be able to read it very easily, as a lot of the characters are outdated. They're written in whatever was in fashion in 1996. It's not Unicode. So if you want to switch it to be able to view it, you can do so by changing your settings, more tools, encoding, and then change it to Chinese simplified, whereupon you get the characters, which is essential to being able to read it. But anyway, I'm going to go through that guide, do it out loud, do it in an interactive format, and show you what it involves as we go along. Okay, so we've got the introduction, and this pretty much tells you what WuBi is and where we're going with it. It says any Chinese character can be entered using 4 or less keystrokes. Okay. It's based on the written character rather than on the pronunciation, so that's unlike pinyin, of course. And a skilled operator can input 160 characters per minute. That's a lot. I'm not sure how many skilled operators there are. I'm certainly not one of them. But in any case, it's a lot better than pinyin, because if you're a student and you type Chinese in pinyin, you're inevitably going to start forgetting how to actually write characters, and WuBi doesn't have that disadvantage. It takes a while to learn, but once you do, you're really reinforcing the characters in your mind as you use it. Okay, so 1.1, fundamentals. This is basically introducing you to how WuBi works intuitively. You have characters broken up into their components. So for the character Li, the family name, you've got this Mu shape, tree shape on top, the Ci shape, child character on the bottom, and they come together to form the character Li. Same with Ming. Ming, that's the sun plus the moon, and that forms Ming. Admittedly, these are kind of simple and very easy examples, but they illustrate the basic principle at work. Chinese characters, even if they have many strokes, are built up of components, which in turn are built up of strokes. And the way the WuBi keyboard works is that it's divided into 5 regions, corresponding with the 5 strokes, 5 different types of strokes. So you've got left falling, right falling, horizontal, vertical, and hook. And to continue the Li and Ming examples, observe in which regions, either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, the roots of these characters would fall. So to type the character Li, you start by looking for the component Mu, and that begins with a horizontal stroke. You'll be aware that in the correct stroke order from mu, go across, and then the rest follow. Therefore, the first root is found in region 1. C begins with a hook stroke. Therefore, the second root is found in region 5. Don't worry if you're not quite following what the regions are and what they mean yet. That'll come. Ming, we have R beginning with a vertical stroke. Therefore, the first root is found in region 2. Yue begins with a left falling stroke. Therefore, the second root is found in region 3. Arrangement of the WuBi keys. So now we're going to look at the keyboard in some more detail. The way the keyboard works is that you have, well, the 5 regions, and then within those 5 regions there are 5 letters. In the first region it's going to be Q, W, E, R, T, and on those 5 letters there are representative characters. So on Q we have the character Jin, silver. On W we have Ren, very common character meaning person. We have Yue on E. And notice all of the characters in this upper left region start with a left falling stroke. Then for the right falling stroke region, all the representative characters start with a right falling stroke. We have Yan on Y, we have Li on U, we have Shui, the character for water, on I, you have Huo for fire on O, and you have Zhi on P. These are the representative characters. Then when we go into more detail, and this is what the WuBi keyboard looks like if you have WuBi stickers on your keyboard, we have multiple Zigen character roots on each key, and sometimes there's only 3, like on S you have Mu, Ding and Xi, and sometimes there's about 13, like on D. There's lots of different Zigen on that character, on that letter. This is not a very high resolution image of the WuBi keyboard. I'll get to one later. I'll show you a source where you can get a high resolution image, which will come in handy. But moving along, going to chapter 2, rules to know before typing. Characters with more than 4 roots. I guess I should back up a little bit actually. Let's actually practice typing those characters that were introduced in the first section. So I'm going to open up my high-res version of the WuBi keyboard. So I've just paused the video and restarted it after shuffling things around a bit. We're going to type Li and Ming in WuBi now. So to start off, we find the character Mu, or the component Mu, which is on S. And then we find the component C, which is on B, hook component. And with WuBi, we type in SP and press space. Li. Now for Ming, we find Yu, which is on J. Then we find Yue, the moon, which is on E. And we type it in JE. Okay, so I thought it was important to back up there a little bit before we introduce all the rules. Characters with more than 4 roots. So basically the way WuBi works is if there's 2 roots, you type in the 2 roots. If there's 3 roots, you type in the 3 roots. If there's 4 roots, you type in the 4 roots. But then what about characters that have more than 4 roots? And we have an example here in shu, meaning to lose. And that contains 5 roots. It's got this chi, it's got ren, it's got yi, it's got yue, and it's got this dao zipang, this knife component. And we have said though that any character can be typed with 4 strokes or with 4 keys or less. So the solution is, according to this rule, that you type the first 3, chi, ren, yi, and then you type the final one, dao zipang. And however many more there are in between, you just ignore those, and the system operates such that it'll recognize what you're after with those first 3 components and then the final one. So let's try that. More than 4 roots. I'm going to type in shu, and that starts with this chi character found on L, then this ren character found on W, then the yi character found on G, and we skip the next one, go to the 5th one, which is dao zipang, found on J. So L, W, G, and J. And as I press J, it's actually going to display a multi-character combination. This is another feature of WuBi, but it's got ban li. That's a multi-character combination. But we're going to select shu. That's what we're after. Okay, so that's one of the rules for typing characters with more than 4 roots. Another rule to take into account is typing representative roots. So as we mentioned before, each character has a representative root. It's like the mascot for that letter. On Y, this character here, excuse me if I'm confusing you with the terminology of characters and letters. I should really restrict myself to saying letters for the keys of the keyboard and characters for Chinese characters. I'll try and do that from now on. But on the letter Y, you have the representative character yan, and that's not in fact typed by searching for its components. You know, this downward stroke and then a horizontal stroke, 2 horizontal strokes and then a mouth character. That in fact is typed by pressing the Y key 4 times. So let's try that. And there you have it, yan. And it's the same for the other 24 representative roots. On U we have li, meaning to stand. And on I we have shui. And so on. So moving on to rule 2.3, typing the other characters that appear on the complete keyboard diagram. So we notice that there's a whole lot of fully fledged characters that appear on the keyboard diagram. You could just take any example. Here we've got the character for I, that's mu. Here we've got the character for sun, that's yu. And how do we type the ones that are on the keyboard? Well, You start by pressing the key that they're on, the letter that they're on, and then you use the letters T, Y, G, H, and N to essentially draw them by stroke. For the number 5, the character Wu, that's found on G. So you first press the letter G, then you identify the first stroke in that character, which is a horizontal stroke, and the second character, which is a vertical stroke, and then, the second stroke, which is a vertical stroke, and then the third stroke, which is a hook stroke, and then the fourth stroke, which is a horizontal stroke. And you don't press, you don't do a combination of 5. We've already said every character can be typed with 4 or less. But what you do is you first press G, which is where this character is found. Then you press G again because that's where the horizontal stroke is found. And you press H, which is where the vertical stroke is found, and it's already coming up here. But then you would finally press G again because that's where the final stroke is found, the horizontal stroke at the bottom. And you skip the hook stroke in the middle. So G. And then we have Wu. So that's how you type other characters that appear on the complete keyboard diagram. Let's try another example. So let's say we want to type this mountain. Oh, that's a representative character. Let's type this one, which means seashell. So start with M, then press M again because the first stroke or the first component is this enclosing sort of 3 strokes over the top. Then press, I think it'll be W because it's 2 falling strokes. So we had MMW. So let's try another example. Let's type the character yeah, which appears on the letter B. And we start, of course, by pressing the letter B. Then we identify the first stroke in that character, which is a hook stroke. And so we press the letter N. And that gives us the character that we're after. Some of the tsugan, some of the components on the keys are not fully fledged characters, like this one. That's just the hand radical. But others of them are. For instance, you've got on the character G, on the letter G, the character Wu, 5, or on I, you've got the word small, the character xiao. So how do you go about typing these characters that already appear in full on the keyboard diagram? So we're going to have a look at that now. I'll just read from the text briefly. When a character appears on a key but is not a representative root, first type the key that the character lies on. Second, build the character by entering the key that contains its first stroke, typo. Third, enter the key that contains its second stroke. Finally, enter the key that contains its final stroke. For example, Wu is on 11G, as we've seen, but it is not the representative character. The first stroke, I, that horizontal stroke, is on 11G. The second stroke, this vertical stroke, is on 21H. The final stroke is on 11G. Thus, the code for Wu is GGHG. These building strokes are always, and reading them in their Chinese terminology, this first one would be heng, that's a horizontal stroke. Shu, that's a vertical stroke. Pierre, that's a downward left stroke. Dian, that's a downward right stroke. Or Go, that's a hook stroke. They are always found on 11G, 21H, 31T, 41Y, or 51N. So they're found in that region near the center, T, Y, G, H, and N. So if the character has only one or two strokes, fill in the remainder of the code with L. That's fairly self-explanatory. Okay, so let's practice this firstly with Wu. So it tells us we first press the letter on which it's found, which is G. Then we press the letter representing the first stroke, the heng, which is G. Then the letter representing the second stroke, the shu, which is H. And then the letter representing the final stroke, which is another heng, G. Let's try this with xiao, which is on I. So we first press I, and then we recognize that the first stroke to be pressed, well, the first stroke of this character is a vertical stroke, that's shu. So press that. The next one will be a T, and then a Y, and here we have xiao. Similarly for ye, which is on B. So we press B, then we identify that the first stroke of the character is a hook stroke, so we press N, which is our hook stroke character. Then it's popped up already for us, so we can just press spacebar. But then the next one would be a vertical stroke, the shu, so we press H, and then another hook stroke, which is N, and we have ye. So that's how we type other characters that appear on the complete diagram. Section 2.4, Shortcuts. So WuBi provides many typing shortcuts, often allowing the user to enter only a portion of a character's complete code to produce it. So we've seen this already. Say for when you're typing in yeah, as we just did, you can just press B, N, hit space. But a character has a reduced code under three circumstances. First, when WuBiLogic has eliminated all other characters based on the code already entered, and or second, when the character is a commonly used character, and therefore was given a shorter code before other less commonly used characters, and or third, when the character is one of the 25 first-level characters whose codes consist of a single key. So an example of this first case, that is when WuBiLogic has eliminated all other characters based on the code, is wei. in its verbose form, the code for wei is TVRC. However, no other characters have the code TVR followed by another key, such as TVRK or TVRA. Therefore, TVR will produce wei. And we can see that here. TVR, wei. So that's a complex character, obviously, but in spite of that, it doesn't need 4 full strokes, 4 full key presses. An example of the second case is bi. So in its verbose form, the code for bi is TTFN. Reminds me of something out of Winnie the Pooh. Whereas other characters exist where the codes containing TT, such as this grain character, TTTT, this smile character, xiao, TTDU, this bamboo character, TTGH, and this, I'm not sure what that represents, but it's TTHF. But because bi is perhaps the most commonly used of the group, rather than giving a less commonly used character the reduced code, WuBi has assigned the code TT to bi. So that's TT, and we get bi. And an example of the third case is he, meaning and it's an often used character. So in its verbose form, the code for he is TKG, however it has a shortened code, T. And in my poster I've actually put all the characters that have a shortened code right next to the letter, just underneath the representative root. So just underneath the representative character. So here on T I've put he, and this is the cap that you'll get just from pressing T once. Similarly for Y, you have the one press character zhu. And there are 25 characters like that, very common characters. On G you've got the character for 1, yi. On J you've got the character for is, namely sh. So you can operate in that way. And that's the shortcut rule. Okay, so 2.5. Here we are told, keep an open mind. It is especially important for students of Chinese to keep an open mind about stroke order and the roots that make up a character. Although most characters can be broken down into the roots that appear on the WuBi keyboard easily, some are tricky. Therefore, when all else fails, try to think of the character in a different way. Think of the roots in a different configuration. So this is an important caveat to WuBi. It generally works in a fairly logical way, but there are a few situations where the assignments have been made with some creativity, let's say. So when it comes to that, I suggest you use a lookup feature like this dictionary. You can type it in pinyin. So you want to look up the WuBi code for lai. You type it in pinyin, and then this program actually returns you the code, GOI. You can type that in WuBi. And I'll put the link to this program and where you can download it in the second video. So that's 2.5. Now in chapter 3, this is practice with the regions. I'm not going to spend too long on this. If you want to go into more detail with it, just look at the yale.edu guide yourself. Here, the author of the article really spells out the regions and how they're constructed and how they work. Gives you some examples. So for this one, which is Lin, this has two characters, well, two components, and both of them are the same, and they're both found in region 1. So the code for that is SS. You see that mu, as we know, is found on S, and so for two trees, SS. And yeah, there's more tutorial space there on that worksheet. It goes through all the other regions as well. But I'll scroll down to chapter 4, the isolation rule. Now this is one of the trickier aspects of WuBi, it has to be said. This is the system that's used to determine the code for characters when there's overlap between key codes. So you might have a couple of characters like ba and zhi. So these both have the same components. I'm going to just type them in pinyin for now. This is a good example, a good illustrative example. And if you want to type these in WuBi, well, obviously you're going to start with K for the mouth component and finish with W for this 2 strokes. It's like bar, it's like number 8. But you know, these are 2 characters that both have the same components. And what the isolation rule does is provide an isolation key so that a character combination that is left-right can be isolated from a character combination that is up-down or miscellaneous. So we would recognize that this character here, ba, on the left, is a left-right configuration, and this word, meaning only, zhi, is an up-down configuration. And so in that way you'd type K, W, and then you look to what is the final stroke of ba, which is a downward right stroke, dian stroke, and because it's left-right configuration, the isolating key is Y. So I press Y. Oh, I'm in pinyin. I'm in WuBi, and I press K, W, and the first one that comes up is zhi, but if I want this one, the left-right configuration, I press Y, as I say, and we get ba. So the tutorial explains exactly how this works in a bit more detail. I'd suggest you read it closely if my explanation here is insufficient. But he gives this diagram, diagram 9, overall character configurations, and then he gives this diagram, diagram 10, the isolation rule, with the configurations on the in the columns and the final stroke in the rows, and this tells you how to determine the isolation key. What I've done in this poster is put it in a visual form, make it a little bit larger. I've combined the two diagrams, diagram 9, diagram 10, and I've made it sort of larger scale, so that's a resource that I'll put available in the second video. So a couple of examples, just scrolling through. First, he gives this example of ba and ju, which we've been through, and the code for ba is KWY, referring to this isolation key. Code for ju is KWU, referring to this isolation key because it's an up-down configuration. Now, the code to differentiate between these two characters, this first one, I'm not familiar with it, but it's got water on the left and it's got a tree on the right. This one here has got water on the left and it's got sort of the character for west on the right. That's the character for jiu, alcohol. So both of them have the keys IS to represent their character, to represent their two roots. But then the first one has the isolation key of Y because its final stroke is downward to the right, but whereas the jiu character has a final stroke of a horizontal stroke, and it's also a left-right configuration, horizontal stroke, so it has the isolation key of G. A couple more. Another one which is represented by the letters I and S has on its left water and on its right nail, ding. I always visualize that as a nail. And its last stroke is shu, this is downward stroke. It's also a left-right configuration, so we work our way down the column, and the isolation key is H. So it works like that. And this one, Li, very common character meaning in. It's probably got a shortcut key. Let me see if I type that. JF. No. JF produces Shi, which is another very common character meaning time. And if you want Li, you have to find the final stroke, which is a horizontal stroke. So that's a hung stroke. And because it has a miscellaneous configuration, you know, it's not directly left, right, or up, down, you work your way down this column, and you notice that the horizontal stroke is associated with the letter D. So we have JFD to give us Li. So that's the isolation rule. That takes some getting used to. You might want to have this poster printed up behind your computer screen to glance at. You can make use of the fact that it'll generally give you suggestions as to what the isolation key is. So for Li, we had JF, and I noticed that it actually suggests as the number 3 option, it has D to give you Li. So you can look at those suggestions given in the the dialog box, and if it's really confusing, you can of course use the software to look up what you're after. Just like that. Alright, so that's the isolation rule. Chapter 5, multi-character combinations. Until now, this manual has only dealt with entering single characters. However, WuBi logic does incorporate rules for commonly used multi-character combinations. 2-character combinations. So, say you want to type in 汉字. The roots of this combination are water and this yo character and a roof, sort of. But because it's such a common phrase, there is a shortcut code which is ICPB. Hanzi. And once you become more proficient at WuBi, you'll probably want to start using those shortcut combinations. I won't go into too much detail on them, but of course there are some far longer ones even. So for the full name of the People's Republic of China, 中华人民共和国, has a combination KWWL. That's built into WuBi. 5.4, the Z key. Z is the only letter not included in the WuBi root keyboard. 26 letters in the English alphabet, only 25 needed for this system. But Z is reserved for a special function, the wildcard. So if you're unsure of one or more roots in a code, you can press the Z key and it'll pop up with some suggestions as to what you might be after. So that's another little tool, a little crutch for when you're unsure of the particular code. What else? Appendix A, graphical summary of all rules used to enter a single character. That could be a useful thing to mull over. Sort of summarizes everything that's been in the document and puts it into a nice graphical representation. And then Appendix B, table of second level characters. This is a table indicating all of the two keyboard press possibilities within WuBi. 25 times 25. But I'll probably leave it there. Those are the main points I wanted to cover in this tutorial. I'm very grateful to the author of this document, Joe Wysentowski, I hope I'm saying that right, for putting that together. But I thought it would be beneficial to have it in a video form for us learners. And in the second video, I'll point out the sources of some of these resources. So, for instance, this poster which I've been using is something which I created myself and which I'll make available for download. The software, this Sogo software, I'll show you where to get that. I think that's really indispensable if you're after proficiency in WuBi. Okay, 再见。